I think also it's worth having the conversation of Doublelift's year as a whole. Like in spring, he was
Doesn't
terrible
matter.
by his standards, and in summer also, he kind of skated by. And it's just we've never had a year of Doublelift that has been the case.
Yeah.
I think always it felt like in North America he was driven by something, and there was either I need to beat TSM up. I'm now Team Liquid, and he was driven by something, and you could clearly see it. He had a reason to prove something time and time again, and maybe that's just been lost. And even though we can have the conversation and speculate about mentality, maybe the issue at hand is just maybe
Skill?
he's just wasn't good enough this year.
Sure. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, who do you blame for that? Because it was like, he was good enough last year. I thought he was like pretty good last year, even though
Oh, he's still a solid player.
yeah, the group stage went bad. And then like you look at you hear the mentality, right? And that's why it triggers me so hard, because it's like, okay, so if your goal is to get out of group stage, right? That can't be your goal just when you get to the group stage. That has to start at the beginning of the fucking year. So if you're gonna go with the whole mentality, haha, 9th place, like spring split doesn't matter, like you say that shit, even when you win summer, you're still being like, you're still tweeting, hey, spring split doesn't matter, like needling everyone. Like it's almost like you deserve to get shit on at Worlds.
It matters now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the problem with that comment, is that basically, here's the sad thing about that. If this was a sports documentary and Doublelift like won Worlds, that's a baller story that he even called that sprint split doesn't matter and he just mailed it in. But then when it mattered, he turned it on. Like, dude, to say that and you've already, remember, skipped the spring split in the past, to then come to Worlds and go 0-6, like that's shameful.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's another thing, by the way, because I know people are already going to say this, like, oh, why are you just focusing on TSM? Yeah, why would we talk about a Pool 1 team losing every single game in a group that was absolutely one that they had a chance to get out of? Like, why would we go on about that? It's not like you guys went on and on about LGD losing a bunch of best of ones. And then I noticed when everyone was talking about LGD being trash coming into this group, they acted like there weren't any best of fives after that, where they just like 3-0'd motherfuckers. Like, what is this shit? Like the whole point is we focus on the big names. So like TSM doing this bad, that's a big name. They're the champions of the LCS, for fuck's sake.
I mean, it was supposed to be easier to win games in this group. It should be way easier to take game off Gen G, LGD, and Fnatic than it should be to take a game off Top. It should be way easier to take a game of those teams than it should be as a Pool 1 seed than it should be for TL to win a game against Suning and win a game against
Even
G2.
the actual games tell you that, because as we've pointed out, that second Gen G game was there in their hand. Like, they had it in their hand 2 or 3 times. Like, that's the best team in the group. If that's the best team in your group, like, you should have been getting out. Like, it was absolutely on the table. I don't even say, by the way, I will say that is a group where everyone in it, in theory, has some level of danger. So it's not easy to get out. Let's not be silly. Like, everyone can beat you. But in that scenario, the only acceptable, like, loss is if they do what they did in the past years. Like, you go 3-3 and then the other guy goes 3-3 and he has the tiebreaker, or, like that would be vague. I could sort of get on board with that. But the idea you lose every game like that is just beyond the pale. Come on, guys. This will go down as the worst result probably ever by a Western team. Like, everyone's laughing, like, haha, Alliance kaboomed. That same tournament, by the way, they perfect gamed a Korean team. Sit on that. Sit on that, TSM fans. You know what you did? You had a perfect record of giving the other team the win, you daft cunt. You did nothing. And then, after crying about junglers for fucking it's like 5 years or something. Remember, Svenska Aaron joined in season 6. Santorum was there in season 5 when everyone flamed him. Like, the jungle thing's been going on for years. And like we say, that moment on the Baron was nothing to do with the jungler. The jungler was doing everything right, except maybe he mistimed the smite, but his team just
he had to smite. He literally had to smite because of HP. Like, he's actually just doomed in that situation by his team. It was 100% his team's fault. Like, 0% was on Spica. I don't know what else he could have done to make that situation more obvious for his teammates. It's like, hey, we killed the enemy jungler. This is a free fucking Baron. All right, I'm just taking it. Like, I think that the way he did it, like, I love the fact that he didn't even pretend to turn with his team. He knew it was such a bad idea to turn there.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just going to fucking keep on hitting this shit. If we want to lose, that's like one of those times where as a jungler, you literally you play like the mental warfare with your own team. You're like, no, I am right-clicking the Baron. And like, and if you motherfuckers don't follow, then I am dying. Those are the two options. Either I die to the Baron, like he did. He died to the fucking Baron. Good, I'll whip them into shape. Next time they better fucking hit the Baron because they know that this motherfucker is psychotic. He will kill himself to that Baron if it comes down to it. So respect to Spica. Honestly, I like the way Spica played. That's an acceptable performance from him. He got screwed over by his lanes. He had no prio, and he still managed to be relevant in every single game. Like, I actually respect that type of play.
Also, I'll give him credit as well. Like, he actually flexed, like, basically the proper champion pool you're supposed to have as a jungler right now. He actually looked like he could play all the picks that he's supposed to. Like, that you can't blame Spica for these drafts. There's another thing. Like, I know they're just going to do this, because basically, I don't know if you know this term, Dom, it's called Mott and Bailey. It's the principle, basically, that back in olden times, when you would have a castle or a fortress, you have a tiny little area at the front that's like a tiny little garrison where you can have some troops or whatever. And the idea is, if they come to fight you, you start fighting them at the gates, the little garrison thing, and then if you lose that, you fall back to your main castle and you're still defended for a while, right? Well, basically, it's an argumentation tool where what people do, you see it in politics all the time, is they make like a mad outrageous statement, and then when you just point out like, well, that's not right, they just fall back. It's like, well, that's not what I was saying, and then they go back to some like totally reasonable statement that anyone can agree with, and they try and imply that like they were always doing that. Like in this scenario, like if you're someone like Path, the angle's always going to be like, but he wasn't even supposed to be the coach. You keep taking him a fucking world championship, so don't you? Like, I'm not the one making him be the coach. Is anyone else aware of that? Like, I don't have a gun pointed at Reginald, like, put Path in the booth now. Like, you have a choice at the beginning of the year. I know this is going to sound crazy to you, Reginald, but the guy that you hire at the beginning of the year, you're allowed to just keep him and take him to Worlds with you. I know you aren't aware of that. You think it's like Blockbuster Video and he has to be back on Mondays or something like. No, he's yours for the whole year, you daft shit. In the same way that you probably still have to pay all his salary when you fire the guy after one split. Like, there's another area where TSM deserves zero sympathy, right? What's the reason they had to bring Path? Because they originally thought Peter Zhang was the fucking truth. My boys. Listen, Don might like him, but I don't give a fuck. That guy, like, all he did is stand behind Zhao Wei Zhao and go, something in Chinese, like, good. And then after that, he just stood behind, like, fucking Spica and was like, you want to play in the main team, son? That's about all he's done his whole career. Like, has he done anything else aside from that? Like, what's he ever done that made him some coach? And by the way, I'll say it one more time just to rub that fucking salt in the wounds of every TSM fan. I personally met with a head figure at TSM who was one of the decision makers in the off-season of last year, and I told them, I guarantee you Youngbok is available and would probably join if you said yes. They had zero interest, and as far as I know, never even contacted him. Well, how do you like me now, bitch? Youngbok almost took fucking Special and Cries and made playoffs over Fnatic at fucking LEC Summer. Kiss my ass, Reginald. You don't know. It wasn't even Reginald I actually talked to. I almost gave that away there, but it was someone else. Basically, it wasn't Reginald. Why the fuck would I meet Reginald?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's super weird what goes on in that team because, I can understand, like, you get a really weird coach that doesn't work out and it's just a horrible fit. But how does it happen every single time?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like, there's one-offs. I remember TL had a one-off. We hired this coach, Randy. He was, like, some football coach, knew nothing about league. He was supposed to be, like, you know, the guy that brings us all together and, like, you know, brings, like he had a bunch of education within how to coach players, and had been doing it for 20 years, but he just knew nothing about the game, and it just didn't fucking work. Like, that's okay, but they keep on going for these coaches.
That you hired just for like a couple of splits, that like Korean kid with ADHD or something like this. It was a cool, like, you know, sort of charity initiative, but I always thought that was a bit cool. I mean, you know, just pretending like he was the coach.
I mean, if we're gonna be real, I think that Loco was probably the best coach that TSM's had.
Pretty good coach, you can't lie. He was actually a pretty good coach.
He was probably the best coach that TSM had. Think about like what's happening.
Yes.
He's the only one that was able to actually keep his job. Right? Every other guy, they get one split, and then they just get weeded out. And it's so weird how it always happens, because it's never like, here's our coach, and then like he gets fired, and here's the next coach. It's always like the guy just like becomes like a zombie. Like it's like okay, man, like what happened to Zix? What happened to Zix, dude? That was supposed to be like the future, right? This guy was known for being a great coach within the context of the day.
I forgot about that one even. Yeah, that was supposed to be what changed the whole culture of the. In fact, that was even supposed to be the one, if people remember, where the logic really went. right, Reggie's going to finally let the coach do things. He's going to delegate. He's going to give it to Zix because Zix had all the success in CLG. He's just going to take over and I'm going to step back. And you are right as well, Dom. The worst thing about them is they don't just get fired and just go home. They're always like kept on in some mad cockery way by Reginald. And they're always just in those TSM Legends episodes, like just stood silently in the background, just watching. And I can't even imagine what's going on in their minds. It's just like, what did I do wrong though? Like, I used to be a coach. Like, shit, like, fuck. Should I say something? They look at Reggie. No, maybe not actually. If I say nothing at all, do you think I can still be here next year? Do you think I still get paid? Like, what are they even thinking about? They're just stood there doing nothing. Yeah. You're right. They just become like the zombie souls of former coaches.
It's
just
so
wandering
weird.
around the fucking coach's graveyard, aka
and everyone that comes in, with the exception of Peter Zhang, every single one was supposed to be like a great coach, right? It was Song, right? Song first. He took this dead Immortals team that was 7th place in spring to 2nd place. Like, they changed one player, Smithy. Like, he obviously was a huge upgrade, but in terms of being a well-coached team, the team made huge improvements over the split that Song ended up coaching. I think he ended up getting coach of the split. They get 2nd place, go to finals, and then go to Worlds from a 7th place team. They get him. He's gone in one split. What the fuck happened to him? Okay, next one. Zixlaw. Okay, Zix. This guy won multiple splits with CLG. He was known for being one of the people that could actually raise young talent. Like, he was able to incorporate new people into the roster and get results that no one expected, right? Stixay, Huhi. These players had not had any LCS experience. Their first split, they end up winning NALCS, get 2nd in MSI, and this guy is known to be a good coach. He just disappears too. Peter Zhang was somebody who they had in the system working with the main team for a full year, and then they make the choice to upgrade into the main team, and then suddenly, like, none of the players like him, no one respects him anymore, and then he's just fucking, he's gone the next split. I just don't know what ends up happening, because it's like, for me, I feel like Parth is supposed to be the GM, right? Like, isn't that what his role is supposed to be? He's supposed to figure out which players are going to be on the teams. He's like the scout master.
Should be firing their coach because their coach is fucking garbage. So Parth, as a GM, could you just fire Parth the coach? Cheers, thanks for taking care of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so weird, and what's super strange about that?
By the way, Dom, the coach of the team also being the GM of the team, his own boss. TSM's amazing, isn't it?
So in 2017, they had that massive collapse at Worlds, and I remember Parth released a statement like, I just feel like, this is my fault, and like, I'm just stepping down because I feel like I'm not suited.
I'm not supposed to be a coach, didn't you? Like, I didn't want to be a coach. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he has that statement, and then he just comes back 3 years later, and he's the coach, and it just makes no sense to me. It's like, why can't...
It's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. What's going on?
When Bran just comes in, he said he didn't want to rule, and then he just shows up. He's like, I'm gonna rule with his chair.
Oh, I can't lie. The way Parth drafted and did this fucking world, he actually probably was like a ghostwriter on the last season of Game of Thrones. That's the way he makes use of all those major story pieces, all those great characters. Like,
yeah, Yamato,
have that Battle of Winterfell just be like a third of an episode or something. Like,
yeah, Yamato, if you ever want your reputation to be completely ruined, you can always go to TSM. They'll make it from like, oh, this guy's a successful coach to like completely worthless within one split. It'll be fucking amazing. Like, I would love to see it. So,
and by the way, just in case
TSM is exciting,
unclear,
man.
You think so?
Well, it might be for you, but here's the thing. Actually, I want to know, Yamato. Do you actually think you could handle it if you went and worked for TSM? Because obviously the main concern is, it ties into kind of what we're saying here. There is a perception that if the players turn against you or Reginald like loses faith, you're kind of out instantly. Like, wouldn't that be like a turn off for you? You think you could handle it?
Like, this might sound arrogant, but I am the most resilient person that I know, and I think
right, keep going.
Okay.
I think when it comes to solving problems, like I get excited by puzzles like this. This interests me. I feel passionate about this, and when I feel passionate, I can work sleepless hours and I'll never be tired. And the prospect of working with TSM and solving that situation over there is very intriguing. Very, very intriguing. Like, it's going to happen eventually, right?
Well, yes. You mean as in someone's going to get it right? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. No,
maybe not.
Not me,
like,
maybe not. Who knows? It could just be doomed.
But the stakes are worth it in the sense that if you did make it, you would be a legendary coach, by the way. Like, you would be cemented as like, you could do what all the others couldn't. The only problem is when you say you like puzzles, this puzzle's more in the vein of like fucking Hellraiser, mate, where like, all the Cenobites come and rip your soul apart. So I'd maybe stay away from this puzzle. Just stick to like Jenga or fucking whatever.